Quick lessons from books. Loserthink by Scott Adams. What is loserthink? It is unproductive ways of thinking. Well, loserthink sounds stupid. That's loserthink. That's an unproductive way of thinking. Loserthink is really easy to remember and a very quick, concise way of describing unproductive ways of thinking. Let's focus on what the brain focuses on. The brain focuses, according to this excerpt from Scott Adams, and it's true, on flaws, on problems. Your brain has been designed through evolution to focus on what's going wrong, which has been great for the advancement of human civilization. But it is not so good today. Here's an example. What's your brain focusing on? Even if you don't have OCD, I'm sure you're saying, well, that pencil is out of place. That is what your brain, through evolution, has been designed to do. It's a survival mechanism. Again, you're probably seeing the M&M that is out of place. Even if you don't have OCD, your brain is drawn to that M&M that is out of place. This is a part of evolution. This is the way that our brains evolved for survival. Let's give you some examples. Because your brain is always focusing on problems, that's what it does so that you survive. It does not spend much of its resources or much of its time on what's going right, because there's millions of good things that are happening in your life right now, but you're not thinking about any of them. There's tons of things that are going right and are going as planned, but your brain does not focus on them. First of all, you're alive, but you don't spend any time thinking about being alive. Doesn't cross your mind. You have a computer. How cool is that? You have a computer, but you don't spend any time appreciating and loving your computer. You don't spend every second of every day thinking about, I'm alive, I'm alive, I'm alive. I've got a computer, I've got a computer. You've got a shelter above your home. These are pretty amazing things that are going right and are working out for you, but you don't think of it. And you're probably looking at the picture and go, well, I've got a home, but it's not as nice as that. Exactly. You're focusing on the flaw. You're focusing on the problem. I wish I had a bigger house. I wish I had a better computer. Or I'm alive, but I've got this ache in my elbow. Your brain finds the flaws, and it's not your fault. Everyone's brain has been designed to do this. All human beings do this, but some of us are able to control this more than others, and we're a little bit more successful when we can control our brain and maybe not focus or dwell on negativity. Now, this is not your fault. It's part of evolution. Imagine the cavemen who would have spent all day absorbing what was going right and noticing all the beauty in the world and focusing on everything that's going well. And then, well, they probably would get eaten by a dinosaur. If they spent their time focusing on what was good and great and perfect, they weren't spending any time on what is going wrong, what could go wrong, and they would let their natural defense mechanisms, their survival mode, go under. They need to focus on, what's that noise over there? Who's that over there? What's that rustling in the bush? They need to be on high alert to survive. And so the brain evolved to always be on high alert. Apparently, wedding photos, running from dinosaurs, that's a thing. I didn't do it, but to be honest, I kind of regret and I kind of wish I would have. I mean, they even got Jeff Goldblum in this one, so that's pretty cool. I'm sure that all these pictures are licensed and I'm going to get in trouble. If I used your wedding photo, you probably like it. I mean, you did this on purpose, so don't come after me like, you used my wedding picture without my authority. Don't you want people to look at this? Isn't this the whole thing? Anyway, if the cavemen spent all their time focusing on what was going right and not focusing time on what was going wrong, they probably would have died. They would have been eaten by dinosaurs. Now, at this moment, you're probably saying what everyone says when they read Scott Adams' Loserthink is, hey, you fool, human beings weren't alive when the dinosaurs were alive. Exactly. Your brain's a flaw finder. You found that problem. When people mention, oh yeah, we would have been eaten by dinosaurs. No, we weren't alive during it. Exactly. Your brain is constantly focusing on negativity because that's what it's designed to do. It's an evolutionary trait for survival so that we don't get eaten probably by wolves and bears, not necessarily dinosaurs, but we're always trying to be alert. That's what the brain does. The problem is that the news media knows that our brain naturally looks for problems. Your brain has evolved to naturally look towards fear, towards survival. And so the news, knowing that's what your brain will naturally do, feeds it and locks you in. And they don't care if they destroy your mind because they're making tons of money off of it. They don't care. So what actually is scientifically happening in this mode is your brain is getting flooded with cortisol, which is your flight or fight response. It shocks your body to be hyper alert, to be aware, to survive when it's in danger, which is good. We need cortisol. We need this. I think it's the parasympathetic, or is it the sympathetic, whatever part of the limbic system. You can read Cowan, is he the doctor who talks about that? I'll get to that book later on. Either way, this is not a bad thing. Obviously, if this didn't exist, human race would not have evolved. We wouldn't have a civilization that we have today. But if you're constantly doing this, if you're constantly hooked up to fear and cortisol, it wears the body down. It breaks you down. And then what we have are other systems of the body, mainly the immune system starts to break down. And then everything in the human body goes haywire because you've been constantly pumped into fear, fight or flight, trauma. I'm scared. And a lot of times it's not real. A lot of the stuff that they're scaring you over, a lot of stuff that they're pumping into your mind, it's not something that you should be in flight or fight mode. Yes, there are times when, hey, I need to escape this mugger. Hey, I'm in a dangerous situation. Hey, I'm scared. I'm running. Something is attacking me. That's a natural time for the cortisol to pump in. But hey, it looks like we got a really scary thunderstorm coming to town. Some of this stuff that they're scaring you over, you don't need to be scared over. And if you're constantly getting hit over the head over and over, it wears the body down and it destroys you. They don't care because they're getting rich. They're destroying your mind. And it doesn't matter which TV news organization is your team. Both teams are doing it. Both teams are flooding your system with fear and locking you in so that they can sell you to the advertisers. They're getting rich. Your body is breaking down. You are living in constant fear. You're living in constant sadness. Your life is over, but it doesn't have to be. You think that everything's going wrong because your brain focuses on flaws. You think that everything is terrible because you can't see the good things going on. Extreme poverty, the world's population in extreme poverty. It's almost non-existent. That's pretty good. As far as good things in the world go, that's pretty up there. And yet, oh my God, the world is ending. And the news is just pumping in fear, scared, terrible. Everything's dying. Democracy is going to be gone. We got blah, 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 blah. Literacy rates. Basically, everyone can read. Wow, that is amazing. No, I'm sorry. The world's ending. Fear, scared, terrible, fight or flight, cortisol. I mean, we can look. Extreme poverty, down. Education, up. Literacy, up. Democracy, up. Vaccination, up. Child mortality, down. Everything is good, but you can't see it because you don't step back and try to see it. We aren't being attacked by wolves anymore. There aren't dinosaurs, and there never were dinosaurs going to chew you in half. You don't have to always be on high alert. You don't have to jump about the wrestling in the bush. You don't have to worry who's knocking at your door. You don't have to worry about these things. You have to stop worrying about everything that could go wrong and start focusing a little bit more on the things that are going right. I'm not saying completely abandon it, but hey, you need to start thinking about it. You need to understand what is going on here. You can't continue to live this way. Americans cannot continue to live in fear over and over, year after year. This is not going to end. They're not going to stop pumping you with fear. Is the TV news going to say, you know what, we've made enough money, we're going to stop? Did they do that 2 years ago? Did they do that 4 years ago? Did they do that 6 years ago, 8 years ago? When did they stop before? When did they stop? Now, we've got enough money now. You think that now they're going to say, that's it. We've made enough money. We don't need to scare you anymore. We're going to actually tell you really some of these truths, some of these positive. No, they're not going to do that. They're going to let you stay in fear. If you can't think of anything good about a situation, and yet you observe that others can, you might be experiencing loserthink. If you're at a wedding and everyone's having a good time, they're laughing, they're smiling, they're hugging, they're kissing, they love each other, they're having a great time, and yet you're constantly thinking something's going to go wrong or something's wrong or all I can see is the flaws in this wedding, that's loserthink. If everyone else is seeing some of the positives and you can't, then you need to start thinking differently because there are positives out there. You don't have to see positives everywhere. You don't have to put on the rose-tinted glasses and pretend that everything is good, but you need to see some of the good. Just as it's probably not sane or safe to pretend that everything is good, it's equally crazy to pretend that everything is bad. If they can see some positives, then maybe there's some positives out there. Maybe you're experiencing loserthink or unproductive thinking, always being afraid, always worrying, always seeing the flaws. It's unproductive. Now, Scott Adams says you need to balance out your TV viewing habits, maybe switch back and forth between channels. What my advice would be is just shut it off, turn it off, move on, stop watching the news. And then the next step is to slowly pull away from social media because it's feeding the fear. It's not allowing you to see any of the positives. It is ruining your life. It is ruining the people around you's lives because your life is deteriorating. So all the relationships are deteriorating and the people around them are deteriorating. It's a lot of R's in that word. So stop. You stop, and that's going to make other people's lives better, and then they can make other people's lives better, but you've got to stop. Shut it down. So that's Loserthink. A lot of great self-help ideas in this book. I know Scott Adams may not be liked by some people, and they might assign him to a certain political party, although that would probably be an error on the part of people that like to assign people to certain categories. Either way, this is an interesting book, and you can get some really interesting ideas in it. I would suggest reading it. It's a quick read. It's very humorous. Obviously, the guy has a sense of humor. He wrote Dilbert.